Welcome, everybody, to our February webinar from Intentional Schools. And the working title of this webinar is What's Love Got to Do with It, with leadership. But just so you're familiar with where we're going with this, let's all take a little, run down memory lane and sing a little Tina Turner, the legendary Tina Turner. What's love got to do with it? What's love got second-hand emotion? Seb,
it's been a while.
Thanks for joining in. It's been a while. But everyone listening in should go ask Alexa or Google Home or whatever to play that song because it's a treasure. Happy February, everybody. And in honor of Valentine's Day coming up, we want to answer the question to Miss Tina Turner. What does love have to do with leadership? Our Intentional Schools team is here to tell you again. We have Jim, Julie, Sebastian. Thanks for joining me today and for humoring me with all the over-the-top love references we're going to make today. But what we're really talking about today is leading with empathy as opposed to authoritarian style of leadership. So we're all familiar with authoritarian style. Keep your head down, do your work. If the boss says stay later, you stay later. If your leader schedules a weekly hour-long meeting, but it consistently goes 2 hours, you just grin and bear it. Has that ever happened to anyone else or just me?
No, me.
I think just you guys.
Definitely happened to me weekly for an entire year. So why should we talk about leading with empathy instead? I'm going to ask Jim, as superintendent of his school district, can you give us a rundown of how the workplace has transitioned over the past probably decade or so? And why are we suggesting we should reframe our leadership styles to lead with empathy?
Sure. Well, thanks for throwing it to me, and welcome back, everyone, for February's edition. Love has everything to do with it, and we're going to cover that for you to a degree. I'll start with why, Jackie, and that's just the world is changing, and the people that we asked to join us on the journey, or the people that we asked to enlist in our vision for how things might become or how we might succeed, whether it's for young people or for each other as colleagues, or for the communities we work in. Things have changed, and to bring along the best people in your organization means you're going to need to adapt some as well. There's nothing wrong with hard work. There's nothing wrong with putting your nose to the grindstone. But I've thought I'm 29 years into education. So on the back half of my career, and I spend a lot of time thinking now about both the good parts of the way I was raised and how we put our heads down and work, but also what I can learn from today's employees, and that hopefully there's some healthy balance in the middle. So the way I would discuss it relatively briefly is, we've kind of transitioned. Your paycheck is important. That's indeed a part of why you work. But a lot of the people I meet and think about employing today are talking a great deal more about purpose than they are about their paycheck. So why am I here? What difference am I going to make? Personal satisfaction is important to me when I think about the people we employ. But most of the people I talk with now are rather than their satisfaction, they're asking me, what are you going to do to help develop my gifts, talents, and passions so that I can become the person I'm meant to be? How does Brene say it? It's more important to be working to get it right than to be right. I think that kind of fits that conversation as well. I think a really natural transition for many of us in schools, but certainly can apply outside of schools as well, is the transition from who's my boss or my manager or my principal to who's my coach. And it can be the same person. A principal can be a coach. They don't have to simply be a manager. But again, you're interested in the development of people. evaluations and annual reviews versus feedback.
Mhm.
This is a great one, and it actually plays out with young people as well. Think about this, guys. I'll use an example for you. If you get a test and you get a score on the top of that test circled in red, for me, it was often in the upper 70s, 80s if I did really well, okay? The learning is over once I see that score. It's all done because I've either decided it's good enough and I'm happy, or it's not good enough and I can't make it.
Mhm.
But feedback, when people talk to us about how we might improve, that conversation can be ongoing and really lead to my development. I really think that works for young people and adults.
Mhm.
We are transitioning away from addressing weaknesses like through evaluation and review to being strengths-based. Let's capitalize on the gifts, talents, and passions that people have. And finally, the difference between my job being my life and having some separation so that I can live a fulfilling life. Hard work is a part of being the best at anything we're going to do, but we really want people to have a healthy balance. We see all of the bad things in our society when we forget to take care of family first. I think most of society is good at saying it. We as leaders need to be better at helping us all live that. Our lives and our families really do come before our jobs, and that's what helps us be effective at our jobs. I'm sorry I went a little long, but I hope that helps set the stage a little bit.
That was great. You said, I mean, all great things. I loved how you hammered down on developing the person and like seeing the potential in people. And you didn't use the word boundaries, but well, maybe you did. But I liked how you hammered down on that one too. Oh, strengths based. I was gonna say that's me and Seb right here.
Yeah.
Right, social workers, strengths based. So yes, I mean, I think we at Intentional Schools are very big fans of this transition we're seeing in leadership and I guess boss styles, how to be a boss, how to be a coach to others, especially in the education field. I mean, we all care deeply about helping districts and schools retain educators, retain staff. We know that is best for students, it's best for families, best for districts. So we are all about trying to help schools and districts create that healthy culture where people want to stay. So I should have said this at the beginning because all these backgrounds may be confusing our listeners and our watchers, but we are celebrating Valentine's Day, and we all picked, where we'd want to have a date for Valentine's Day. Jimmy chose a diner. Julie is dreaming big.
Yep.
In Paris. I'm going with Little Italy in New York City, one of my favorite places. And Seb is giving Carrie the date of her dreams in the gaming room.
Yeah, this is a club or a gaming room. I'm not sure.
I love it. So just so everybody, knows what's going on. Based on that strengths perspective, let's really focus on like sharing how we have learned from leaders who have led with empathy. And Seb, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about a real life example that you have experienced of someone leading with empathy in the workplace, how that impacted you, maybe how it contrasted from other experiences you had?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing I would say is for those of us to really just understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. I just feel so with empathy, understanding and sharing the person's feelings. If you're an empathetic person, you can listen without judgment. Your connection is not limited by your own experiences. An empathetic person can feel someone else's emotions regardless of their personal experiences.
Mhm.
It looks like non-judgmental, perspective taking, being aware of verbal cues, nuances, being an active listener, right? Sympathy, on the other hand, unlike empathy, practices, it's very surface based. Right. And so instead, you may say something like, I feel sorry for you, rather than actually feeling the connection and feeling bad for somebody. It's sometimes something we just say. Right. And so that could look like, just having thoughts about somebody when in conversation, giving unasked advice. Right. And so I think Jim mentioned Brene Brown. And so I know we have an upcoming Dare to Lead workshop in March, by the way, in the Chicagoland area. And so I think in her book, she has a good example, which states something along the lines of when a friend responds with sympathy, it sounds like, I feel so sorry for you. And then when a person responds with empathy, it sounds like, I get it, I feel with you, and I've been there. Right. There's a very, very big difference. And so, one of my experiences in the workplace, I guess I would say, when I kind of think back, there's been lots of experiences, right? But I think it's one of the more experiences that kind of stood out was when a friend of mine was being reprimanded and ultimately lost his job. There was a moment or a significant long-lasting moment in my office, and how I responded at that moment was really crucial to him. Right. And so so I responded with empathy at the time, where I was just, I'm really sorry, I'm glad that you told me that. I'm here for you. Now in the back of my mind, I was also trying to think of when was the time that I lost my job, right? In the moment. And it took me back to 14 years old when I lost my job as a paper route boy, because I was stepping on probably Jim's lawn too many times in the morning. And I had enough. Called the paper out, the Beacon News or whatever it was, and that was it for me.
Oh my goodness. Little 14-year-old Seb.
Yeah. Probably even younger than that, right? And so I would just say, going back to, some of the leaders that I've had is some of the greatest leaders that I've had, a few of them stick out, but this idea that their first instinct and natural connection and the first words that come out of their mouth was empathetic, a display of empathy, which immediately puts a different type of feeling in my body and a different type of thought in my brain, because you just said that. Does that make sense? It almost gives me, right? And so that is sometimes great leaders. I wish more leaders knew that in that moment, you can really change somebody's thoughts and feelings in that moment to help them get by. And so going back to what Jim said and what you said, Jackie, it is all about love in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Seb. Julie, do you have a strategy you have used in the past or using right now to build trust with your teams by being genuinely concerned and invested in their well-being? How do you go about creating an environment where people feel valued and understood?
Right. So there are a few things you can do, but some of my go-tos, I always, when I'm working with people, I try to make sure to ask for feedback and ask for opinions, because I was working on something big last night. I sent it to all of you and I said, take a look at it if you have the chance, and be honest. I know this is a first draft. And that happened in the last 24 hours, but that's pretty par for the course. I want people to know that I value their opinion. And part of that is because I know how it feels to not have my opinion valued by people I work with. And so I don't want to ever cause that feeling in anyone, which is empathetic in a way. It's just kind of the inverse of it. But I think that being mindful to say, hey, I really want your opinion, and be honest. Can you do this? Please let me know if you can't or if you need help, and just leaving that window open. And then I haven't done this as much with this team, but in people that I've been more of a supervisory role with, I always try to pay attention to behavior, how emotions express themselves. So I'll make a mental note of like, okay, what is baseline for this person? And when I see anything deviate, I always try to check in. I had a coworker that I was working with, and she worked part-time at the time, and we would be really, really good. And then we would start working slightly different hours. Her schedule would change. We would work slightly different hours, and things would start to get weird. And I would feel the tension. And so I always tried, whenever I started to feel that happen, I would try to make sure we scheduled a meeting and check in and make sure we're good, make sure we're on the same page. And I would always say, if there's something going on, it's something I need to know about, if I've done something, please let me know. I want to make, and I would always phrase it. I wouldn't be like, oh, you're acting weird. Like I would say, I want to make sure that we are on the same page, and I want to make sure that we're doing well together. This is something we care about. This job is something we care about. And I want to make sure that we're able to do the best we can. And I care about you. And I literally would say that. So we had to kind of, and just with personalities and the way we work together, that happened probably in the course of the time we were together, probably 3 or 4 times where it would start to drift. So I would always try to pay attention to when things seem a little different. Just make sure you schedule a check-in and just ask those questions that seem really awkward, but when it comes from a heartfelt place, it's usually received really well.
Yeah, I love that. And that's another Brene quote, clear is kind. And I have become a bigger and bigger fan of being direct and like, just, I love how you just were clear and checked in with them. And yeah, I think that was great. For the record, I think you're doing a great job as the director here too.
What?
For the record, I think you're doing a great job as a director here too.
I hope so. I try.
Jim, I'm going to throw this one at you because I know you're really good at it. But can you talk about the power of appreciating others and recognizing not only successes, but contributions of your staff or your educators or friends?
Yeah, actually, I have no experience in this one, Jackie.
Zero.
No, thank you. I appreciate that one. It is honestly, for me, one of the best parts of the job. I was very fortunate as a young person to have people, especially in the schools, but really throughout our community, who saw potential in me. And oftentimes things we don't yet see in ourselves. And I think in this group, the 4 of us have maybe said that to each other before about the value of those kinds of people. And that's really what we hope for in schools, because when you're developing young people or helping to develop them, as well as the adults around them, we often see our flaws and our mistakes really well. Sometimes we don't see them well, but it's really hard for us to acknowledge the good things about ourselves. And so the words of affirmation mean a great deal to the people we work with, young and experienced. Recognition also fits for me. I'm a fish philosopher, so if you've ever read the book Fish by London, Christensen, and Paul, or you can find the YouTube video about the Pike Place Fish Market out in Seattle. Two of their 4 tenets resonate here in recognition, but just being fully present for the people you're working with, and then the make their day trait, spending time with others. I find recognition, encouragement, or just expressing gratitude to people, it's uplifting. It helps people discover their potential. It helps them feel good. If you know anything about the brain research, it actually helps release cortisol, which dissipates anxiety for our folks. And people feel a lot of pressure to perform in public schools, whether it's or private schools anywhere, whether it's what society or parents think we need to be providing, or it's pressure we heap upon ourselves or social media or what have you. We want to reduce that anxiety. We work really well under short periods of stress, but to be effective people, we need less anxiety and stress in our environments. some of the things we do, well, one thing I should add quickly, I think recognition and encouragement for others also helps build trust
Yeah.
across an organization, because you're not going to do it if you're not genuine. Sometimes with people we're getting to know, it will be a little more surface level at first, but then we view people in action and we see their qualities. I'm really fortunate in that I still have one of my own children in school here, so I'm watching teachers and coaches trying to help develop my son, and they're really exceptional at it. They know how to take his gifts and try to help him become the young man that we all hope he will be. So I think that's helpful as well. I try to visit classrooms regularly and just affirm the things I see, especially when our staff are working with students, because it's impossible not to see their gifts working with young people. They're patient. They deal with emotions. They deal with students coming to us with all kinds of challenges from home, and they're able to spend time with those young people to make them feel loved at school, which is important, and then even to stretch them academically, which is, of course, why we exist in the first place. So I hope that affirmation plays well, just the visits with people on a regular basis. We also do some formal things. We call them MVPs, our mascots, the Pioneers. So the most valuable pioneers for every month. That's a tangible recognition. And we have staff members of the year in 3 different categories. And we've really framed it as such that it is an opportunity to share positively throughout our community about these people. Because school is a place that everybody needs to feel good about. You've all worked in schools at some point or in long portions of your career, and every school has warts. That's the saying we use. We get it. But no one wants to spend time looking at their warts. People want to feel good about the places they send their children and their community schools. Public, private, parochial, charter, doesn't matter. You need to feel good and have your kids feel safe and valued. And the best way for your kids to feel good and safe and valued is that we take care of the adults that take care of the kids. There's an old saying, you guys have probably heard this. Okay? If you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the kids. I mean, we definitely bring our teachers food sometimes, but metaphorically, feed your people.
Jim, I've never heard that before.
I haven't either.
You've never heard that? Oh my heavens.
It tracks.
It's a great one.
And
That
it
is
speaks,
really good.
that's why he's at a diner, folks.
And that's why I'm a Snyder. Yes. Sorry, I rambled on a little bit there, but no, it's
I love it.
yeah, you and I'll wrap up really quickly. I think that's a real fun thing about working with all of you, is we appreciate each other's gifts, and it really puts a good pressure on me. I want to perform for all of you. I want to make sure that we succeed together, and that dynamic can happen anywhere, in any school, in the country, even in Paris, Julie.
Yes.
I think it can happen if you're in it together and you just build on the gifts, talents, and passions of each other.
Yeah,
Nice.
I love that.
Well said.
Thank you. Let's continue sharing the love. I would love it if each of us would just tell a short story about a leader we had that showed empathy, that that we really appreciated working with, working under, and that it just embodied courageous leadership. And I'm going to start with this one. I had a principal, and part of the social worker's job is when a kid's in crisis, to assess how much of a danger they are to themselves or others, and then make recommendations. And so we make the assessment, and then we always have an administrator sign off on that assessment. And one day I went to the principal's office twice because I had 2 in one day. And it was about 2:00 and school ended at 3:04, I think. And she said, "What? This is a different one? You did 2 today?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Go home, go home." And I just said, "Really?" And she said, "Go home. Go, like this is enough. Go home." And it was such a gift because, and I know Seb, you feel this, like it is such a weight to carry when you're doing those crisis assessments all the time. And for the past decade, the increase in assessments has been, I don't know what the word is. Like it's just doubled, tripled, whatever. But yes. And it weighs on you. And so I just could never tell her how much that meant to me that she, it was an hour early, which, is not like a whole day or anything, but it meant the world to me that she saw how hard we were working to keep everybody safe and the toll that it takes on us. So I'm forever grateful for that type of leadership that sees that and appreciates that.
That's awesome.
Let's go back to you, Seb. Do you have a quick story about a leader?
I guess mine is more not so much like a actual event, but I did have a coworker who I still keep in touch with today. And honestly, we text almost every day. And so when I think of, he's one of my best friends. And when I think of, he didn't have the title of maybe a leader in the school, but we're all teacher leaders or staff leaders in our own way, right? And so what I mean by this is when we think of leadership, what we know, right, is that that 3/4 of our effectiveness comes from two places, right? Being inwardly sound and others focused. And that's really where it comes from. And when I think of my buddy and all the attention and all the humility and the self-awareness and purposeful conversations that he had with me, whether it be about X, Y, or Z, like that is just, he was just displaying exceptional leadership qualities and attributes on a day in and day out basis. And that's just somebody who didn't necessarily have the title, but he definitely was a leader in that way every single day, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you had that and still have it with them. Julie, what you got?
Yeah, mine is not really a specific event either, but it's more of a personality trait. And a guy I used to work with, he was just, we were all busy and always, there's always so much to do. Always. But he was always interested. And if he was with you, he was with you. Whoever it was, he was just genuinely interested in people. And he loved hearing what was going on and the work we were doing. And so, and if he just listened, he listened without an agenda, And so, and then was open if you needed anything, or if he was listening and thought, oh, I can help with that. He was always quick to say, well, would it be helpful if I did this? And I think that approach to busy life and a busy workplace is just really refreshing. Just to be present and genuinely interested.
I like that.
And willing to help. So,
I like that. Jim?
Okay, mine is an event and a person, Mr. Floyd Fleetham. And Mr. Fleetham was our government and civics teacher in high school, and he passed recently within the last year, if I remember correctly. But he did an event for us every year called the Warm Fuzzy. And I'm sure you guys are somewhat familiar with the Warm Fuzzy concept. But he would dress up. He looked a little bit like a clown when he dressed up. But the purpose of the Warm Fuzzy was he basically forced us to think about people we needed to repair relationships with, or that we respected but hadn't said, and tell why
Mm.
we respected them. And it was in a half-page handwritten note to others. And these are 16, 17, 18-year-old young people. So pretty much into ourselves. But it was a transformative experience. And I had struggled with some friendships of my own doing. And that one-day event changed my entire set of feelings about high school and my experience. And I know it did for a lot of other people because it still gets talked about throughout our community. Really cool side note, my wife and I got married and we saw him on our honeymoon at Disney World.
Yeah.
And we talked about it then. Yeah, just fortunate. And it plays out now because it reminds me of when you talk to people and speak into them about their gifts and talents and passions and possibilities, why you respect them, why you admire them, why you're thankful for them, what you want to recognize in them. We have to deal with our weaknesses, but so much more powerful to work in people's areas of strength or their gifts.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily learn that important lesson at 17, but it did stick, and it's come back as I've matured mildly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love these stories, y'all. Isn't it so it's just such a good reminder of the impact people have had on us and that we have on others, that the schools we're working with, the districts we're working with, they're doing such an important job. They're doing such an important job. And we have the privilege of walking alongside them. At Intentional Schools, we are offering a few different Dare to Lead workshops coming up. There's one in Chicagoland, Charleston, Central Michigan, and then one in Nashville too. That's what we have booked so far. And we're just really excited about those workshops. We just finished up one here in Franklin, Tennessee a couple weeks ago. And just the way we see them grow and learn. And we get to do that, walk alongside them when we're doing these workshops. It is just inspiring. But you can learn more about those workshops by visiting our website. I think Julie will probably link to it in this. And then also we want to just share about our leadership coaching too. Leadership coaching is such a great way to have someone walk alongside you, help you create a plan for growth, but that plan isn't just going to sit on a shelf. Like you have someone who's going to walk with you and empower you to follow through on it. And it all comes down to making a difference. And like Jimmy said at the beginning, developing people. And then in schools, that just trickles down to our students. So we just want to thank you, first of all, for coming and sharing in our February webinar and hearing all the love stories about leading with empathy. And we encourage you to look us up and give us a little shout, see how we can help, see how we can partner with you. So thanks for joining with us, everybody.
Thank you so much. Nice.